Since the release of the remaining 23 Abuja-Kaduna train passengers by their abductors, there has been calm in areas initially identified as hotspots for bandits and other criminals. There is also increased mop-up activities by the Nigerian Armed Forces and other security agencies who now seem to have taken the offensive against the insurgents. However, some observers argue that these changes are evident because we are in the pre-election season, and as such, the government is trying to save face. Others are, however, of the opinion that Nigerians are truly reaping the fruits of the resolve of the security chiefs to work together and achieve coordinated intelligence, identify targets, and eliminate them. Despite all this, a report released by Beacon Consulting has shown that even though cases of attacks, abductions, and fatalities have reduced in the month of September compared to the previous months, there is still much to be done. Hello and welcome to Daily Politics on Trust TV. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy, and governance. I am Hamza Idris. Tonight on the program, we are joined by the former Army spokesman, Brigadier General Sani Usman Kuka Sheka, retired. We are also joined by Dr. Kabiru Adamu. He is a security and intelligence expert. Together, we will be appraising Nigeria's security situation. Welcome to the program, gentlemen.
Thank
General,
you.
welcome to the studio.
Good evening, and thank you so much for having us.
We will take a short break, and when we return, the discussion of the day commences. Stay with us. Yes, welcome back. Gentlemen, once again, happy to have you in the studio. The latest story today, in Nigeria was from the Minister of Information, and he was responding to what the U.S. Embassy said, that Nigeria should be on the alert. Foreign citizens should be alert because there is imminent attack on Abuja. And he said, no cause for alarm. Maybe I should start with General. Is there really no cause for alarm?
Well, in a sense, yes. However, I think such warnings should not be taken for granted, neither shall we take it lightly, regardless of the motive. And why am I saying so is simply because this is not the first time we have had such, advisory notices. But this time around, it was more precise and specific, terrorist attack on Abuja. And the starting point is, let's look at it. The previous instances, they have given such advisory notes and predicted, such things happening. Have they happened? If they have not, so what is the motive behind this consistent advisory notice? But beyond that then, you look at the various organs of the government. First, the Department of Security Service, State Services, came out with a statement, and later the Nigerian Police Force came out, and of course the minister has said so. And of course, if you look at the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, has also responded, not necessarily through the media, but I think there were corresponding actions taken. So invariably, this is exactly what we kept on saying. When dealing with security challenges, there should be a holistic approach in the sense that every citizen has a role to play. The role varies. There are those who are statutorily responsible for the security of the citizens of this country. But beyond that, they need all the support, all the cooperation that they can get from the citizens. So now calling on citizens and residents to be more security conscious, and I think is a good thing. But being precise, telling people not to go. And I'm so impressed with the Minister of the FCT, who said all the schools that are closing because of this should not close. So I think in a way, there is no cause for alarm. It's more or less that they are being prophets of doom. But in another way, you don't take any security information for granted, regardless of the motive and where it is coming from.
Doctor, as a security expert, what is your take on this alarm? Should the U.S. Embassy just pass it to our security forces, or what they did is actually the right thing to do?
So there are two components. First one is the statutory responsibility of the U.S. government to U.S. citizens. That is nothing, we can't take away that from them. They have a responsibility. If they are aware of a threat that can affect their citizens, they have to share that to protect their citizens. But then they are not in their country, they are in another country. And so that is guided by international relations and diplomatic principles and laws, actually. So where foreign embassy, especially a friendly ally, and I emphasize that word, an ally, a friendly one, is aware of information or intelligence that could affect the host country, the established practice is to share that information with the host government. Now, in this instance, at least based on the response by the police and by the SSS, one can conclusively say that those two organizations were not aware of their intelligence. I took those statements and tried to comb them with a fine tooth, actually. And they invariably indicated that they are receiving that information and they are going to use it as an extra feed into their intelligence. It's different from saying, no, we're aware and we are taking such action. So clearly, based off on those two responses, it appears the U.S. government did not, or the U.S. Embassy did not share that information with them, yes. which is not in convention with normal diplomatic practice. Now they can argue, for instance, that no, it's the usual advisory, but no, this is different. They indicated a terror alert, and they cited locations that could be targeted. So clearly, the implication is that they are relying on an intelligence by putting that out there.
Yes, General, you see, before 2015, we had some messages, that the election would not even hold. Some people have started alleging that this is just, throwing the fear there to capture almost every other person, the actors, security agencies, and all that. But amid this, I know that in-house here, we went extra mile to dig, and we were able to come out with some findings. Some high-profile terrorists have been picked. In fact, one just yesterday, the other one on 28th around Mararaba. This is our exclusive here, based on our sources. So how do we now distinguish between false alarm, real alarm, and maybe an advice from a friendly country in court?
I think if you recall what I said, my closing remarks at the earlier instance, I said we should not take things for granted.
Yes.
And I know for sure a lot is being done in the country, particularly by the armed forces and the security forces, in respect of securing this country. And the instances are the one that you have mentioned. And of course, I read it and I even tweeted it,
Oh, okay.
Not in the way media transport it anyway.
Well, anyway, we are reporters,
so
we may not.
I am aware of that. But beyond that, again, there is this synergy of effort among the security forces. In the previous instances, we were craving for it. Now, the military, they are carrying out joint operations, and now they have incorporated the other security forces. And the intelligence community has also been incorporated in the sense that, unlike in the past, they get the information and the information is not being acted upon.
Yes.
So it's accumulation of this synergy of effort that you are seeing, that there are so many, attacks that were prevented, through intercepts, of these criminal elements. And beyond that, again, you have the military forces, particularly using the air power, to pound on this, bandits, kidnappers, and terrorists, both in the northeast and, of course, northwest, as you have heard and you have seen. So invariably, the people will definitely offer so many explanations as to why these things, but it's accumulation of renewed synergy and sincerity of purpose on the part of the security forces. And I can rest assure you, I think they are even being further encouraged by the government, because more platforms are coming, particularly for the military.
Yeah, the president also said it.
There is no doubt about that fact. Nigerians have not seen anything yet, because there will be continuous onslaught on them. So, and while they are carrying out that aspect, the intelligence community are not resting on their hours, because some of them are trying to escape. And if you look at what is happening in the northeast, for instance, there is no more freedom of action or movement. Many of them are trying to escape, or they have been escaping. And you look at the alliances between the bandits and the terrorists. So the intelligence community are also working hard around the globe to ensure that before they could, activate their sleeper cells and what have you, they were able to, nip them in the bud. And I know that beyond that, the equipment, I think there is also increased human resource of the various security agencies, particularly of Department of State Services. So a lot of people do not know that. And of course, equipment.
Meaning intelligence gathering.
Yes, human intelligence is equally very important. So these are the results of this, silent effort that you are witnessing. So people should not think that it's just happened overnight. It's a kind of fruits of, diligent and painstaking effort.
Yes, yes, Doctor. In your September 2022 report, you said security operatives sustain action, which is in line with what General just said. We have graphics here. It's from your findings. But before you analyze this, they have claimed success. Are there some differences between what happened in August and what happened in September in terms of progress, vis-a-vis what we have on the screen?
Unfortunately, not so much. We actually use the term that the trend has plateaued. In other words, we've seen like a stable trend. The number of persons that were killed in August was about 856, and then in September it was 861. So a significant, an insignificant increase, as it were. Same thing for abduction, and then same thing for the number of incidents.
Yes.
Even the regional configuration of.
Yes, we will come to that, because you say you recorded 528 incidents or security breaches that resulted in 379 abductions, 861 fatalities, if I get it right, and this affected 185 local government areas in 36 states. Can we say we are making progress?
Again, like I pointed out, if you are comparing August and September, then it plateaued. It didn't change. However, if you go back to March, when we recorded about 1,400 deaths, to now September, when we recorded 861, then there is progress.
General, will you add something to this? Maybe, let me say, compared to last year, what we recorded this year. Can we say we are making progress?
Well, there is no doubt about the fact that we are making progress, and the instances are very clear. If we are making reference to what is happening, for instance, in the northeastern part of the country, which you are far more familiar than most people having, so you have your fingers on what is happening there. The instances of terrorism actions have reduced tremendously. Yes, in the northwest we have had all these things, but given what is happening now, I can say that we are making progress. And just like I earlier mentioned, it is a kind of process. It's a kind of journey. We are yet to reach, the desired end. So, but compared to last year, every time we are having progresses. Yes, you could point out certain security breaches here and there. Yes, but I know that efforts are being made to make sure that such things have not been, are not happening. I can remember, apart from the equipment holding, even the correctional services have carried out massive reshufflement. Maybe it is not announced, but I know that a lot of things are being done. And these are some of the reasons why one will say, well, not just recording progress, but giving assurance for the future that things will definitely get better. And we have seen at least this year is far better in terms of security than last year.
Yeah.
And we anticipate, or we hope, that it will continue to get better.
Yeah, yeah. Doctor, in your report, of September, you also said ISWAP, they claimed attacks outside Northeast in series of messages. They claim to have carried the attacks in Edo, Ondo, and Kano. But Edo denied it, saying it was fleeing bandits. The names, being used for terrorists, for bandits, sundry criminals, and all that. What is your take? Is it just propaganda by ISWAP, or truly they have infiltrated Edo, Ondo, Kano, and other places? Based on your findings.
Now, based on our findings, the three claims that was made by ISWAP appear to have been propaganda. However, just like General said earlier on, you don't discard any either information or intelligence. In this instance, it's an information coming from your enemy, claiming an attack in an area where traditionally we don't know it to be active. Two possibilities. One is that it is reaching out to other groups, non-state armed groups that are in those locations, and trying to establish some form of partnership with them. And those groups now carry out those actions, and it's trying to claim the action to show that it's present there. The other possibility is that those are cells that are one way or the other affiliated to the larger group, and that those cells now carried out those actions, and then it's trying to claim the attack. But suffice to say, the modus operandi is not an ISWAP modus operandi.
Okay.
Similarly,
the footprints did not really
there was
validate their claim.
Not at all. And more importantly, not that it didn't even, there was nothing in terms of the intelligence available, both the charter and then the corroboration by sources from within that environment that indicated that they are the ones who carried out those attacks.
Though retired, a general is always a general, and information available to. Why do you think they are now claiming to have, venture into other regions apart from their traditional region, which is Northeast?
Well, even though I don't speak for the terrorists,
yeah, of course.
So,
but
with evidence,
you're an academic besides being a general,
available, I still make reference to the wonderful and sterling effort that is happening in the Northeast. Particularly this Operation Hadinkai and the multinational joint task force, of the Lake Chad region. They are doing a wonderful job. Okay. Therefore, every day, the ground or the space is becoming tighter. They are squeezing it. And remember, ISWAP has been in alliance with ISIS, and they would like to remain relevant. And it, that terrorism thrives on publicity.
Yeah, that's the oxygen,
Oxygen. Well, Margaret Thatcher said it's the oxygen, publicity is the oxygen of terrorism. So basically they thrive on that. And that is why in several instances we appeal to our colleagues in the media to know how to disseminate information coming from these criminal elements unconsciously, in the bit of letting the public to know, performing your constitutional roles. At the same time, you are helping them in doing their duty. In doing their job. Most especially if you don't evaluate the information coming from. So they know that. They know the psyche. So they tend to take advantage of it to kind of, and more so, if you look at any act of terrorism, they are not even concerned about the number of victims, but the the publicity that it would have garnered for them. And that was why it, even at the time when you are in Maiduguri, they would like to know how, especially the international radio station, frame their stories after a suicide attack and all the rest of them. So they are still using that tactics, using the psychology of an average Nigerian to say, but gone were the days, that such things will be taken hook, line, and sinker. The security forces are being more proactive and open with information. And of course, people are also helping with information, so you can easily, verify anything that is happening, particularly within the community. So those things cannot be taken the way it is. But invariably, they are just trying to remain relevant. And just like Doctor has said, it's more or less like marketing strategy, trying to tell people that they are still there in case, if more or less like soldier for hire, that if you want to form an alliance, we are readily available and all the rest of the thing. But unfortunately, that thing, I don't think it will happen. Why? Because if you look at how Boko Haram started and up to the time when it reaches climax, coveting territories to the extent of setting up a caliphate, every reasonable thinking human being, of course terrorists are not reasonable, they are not normal human beings, otherwise they should have known that it's a kind of wishful thinking for you to think that you will, carve out a religious republic in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Not anymore. Not anymore. So, but that notwithstanding, they keep on deluding themselves, because it's neither here nor there. Take, for instance, now the space is tightening, they cannot go back. And you remember the issue of the fact that up to now we are yet to come out with a cogent policy, that will address the issue of these people that have repented, over 70-something thousand. So unless, and they know about that, so they are kind of, and I mentioned it earlier on, that unless the federal government comes in handy and assists Borno state government and the military, in dealing with that issue, but not just that issue. There are some of these, terrorist suspects that have been awaiting trials for some years. In various holding facilities. To what extent are we addressing? So sometimes when they are passing all that information, they are trying to reach out to certain, criminal elements, or, people are exactly what they are doing. But in real sense of the word, it is not true, just like he mentioned. But again, at the same time, we should not take it for granted, the fact that it is just a shouting match, but we should be able to come out with cogent steps to address this issue. And I'm so happy the issue of holistic, approach to it. Just not quite long at the Nigerian Army Resource Center, there was a joint, stakeholder seminar, from the Office of the National Security Advisor, the Nigerian Army Resource Center, and other stakeholders to address this issue. And I hope as we continue to deal with the issue of insurgency, terrorism, banditry, and kidnapping, at the same time we are trying to use other non-kinetic, approaches to address the issue, particularly, again, the issue of justice is equally very important. And I kept on saying this is not just issue of justice for the victims, but even to the perpetrators of this crime.
They deserve to be taken care of. Maybe if it is punishment, they should be punished, and they should be seen to have been punished. Doctor, closely related to what he just said, I remember when I was reporting from Maiduguri, and the Northeast, sometimes they will call journalists the next day and say, we didn't see our report.
That's what I call the framing.
Exactly. They will call you and say, we attacked so place. Where is the story? It's not in your paper, or we didn't hear it on your... It was really a subtle threat for journalists. We thank God we survived it. But now, there is another time bomb, as he rightly mentioned. A lot of successes. Today, the Minister of Information said, the worst days are over. But I have my doubts, because the thousands that have repented, they don't know what to do with them up till now. ungoverned territories, even though you say they can't claim it, but there are still communities in the Northeast that people cannot go back. Civil authority, the military, they have done their own. But there is this huge gap of civil authority. I'm talking about police, immigration, custom, local government chairman. Yeah. They are not there. So are we really over this serious problem that we've been battling for 13 years?
So as far as I know, the Borno State is implementing a post-conflict reconciliation or a program anyway that includes reconciliation as well as other interventions, and it is what led to this massive repentance of the members of both the Jamaat al-Ahl Sunnah al-Dawat wal-Jihad and the Islamic State in West Africa province. From what I know, at the early stages there was reluctance from the federal government as well as the Nigerian army, or rather the military, for obvious reasons, because there is an ongoing military operation, and then on the other hand you are extending an olive leaf, which is what a post-reconciliation program is all about. But I think after the successes that were seen in the early stages of that intervention, the military keyed in and took over the process. According to the governor, Borno State governor, when he escorted the president to the UN General Assembly, he claimed that as at that date, there were 82,000 repentant members of the group.
82,000?
In the camps, according to him. But additional information coming from the military, I think from the commander of Operation Hadinkai, indicated, I can't remember the exact figure now, but he was able to separate the that 82 into members of the groups themselves, their family members, and then people who were caught in between. They are not family members, they are not operatives of neither of the groups.
Maybe acquaintances, or maybe they were found around the communities where the insurgents hibernated.
Exactly. So that figure was made available by, I think, the commander of Operation Hadinkai, and if I remember well, he said around 14,000 out of that 82 are actually members. But then, irrespective of the designation of who they are, there is a need to put them through a process. And that process...
Like what is happening in Gombe? Maybe it's not enough?
The radicalization process, that is what I mean. And more importantly, because the radicalization is just a process, it is what happens after the radicalization that's even more important, the rehabilitation.
And readmittance. Reintegration, yeah, in other words.
So every post-conflict program should have all of these elements. And I think that is when you talked about the federal government coming to the aid of Borno State government, that is what I would like to see. But not just the federal government, our development partners in the international community, because frankly, this is not what Nigeria alone can shoulder. Resettling this number of people, especially in an area where the country is poor, would require a lot of support.
Yes, General, some people are saying because the process, rehabilitation, reintegration, and it's not really based on international standard. Some of them, after being released into the society, they find it very difficult to even get back to their homes or even come out or go to the markets. And that some are now quietly sneaking back to the forest, especially in the Northwest. I don't know whether you are aware of this and what should be done to actually truly reintegrate them so that they will be accepted by the society.
Yeah, well, that was what I was advocating first, and I made mention of the intervention of the federal government, and thankfully, in fact, Dr. has even added another dimension that we require assistance from our developmental partners. And of course, when you are dealing with issue of such magnitude, all hands have to be on deck. You know, the Operation Safe Corridor, to a large extent, the issue associated with it, the issue of, the last leg of such program, which is reintegration. But you cannot have reintegration if the society is not willing to forget and forgive, to accept these people. Because there were instances, after going through the program, by the time they take him home, the people will just run away. that you should take him away. They don't want to see him. They don't want to be associated because of the stigma associated with it. And that's one of the reasons that actually prevented some of them to, voluntarily, repent and, move into the society. So unless you have the buy-in of the whole society, and that is why I talked about justice. When you are thinking of disarmament, demobilization, rehabilitation, and then reintegration, you have to think of the people. First, they have been victims, they have been traumatized, they have suffered so many, humiliation, whatever, losses and what have you. To what extent are you addressing that? In most instances, there are people, yes, lives were lost, but what sort of intervention are you giving to the society to be able to
provide succor,
absorb this kind of thing? And there are instances, facilities, schools, places of worship, markets were destroyed. What was the intervention? Beyond that, the average person that has been a victim, to what extent have you taken care of him to make him or her conditioned to receive such people? So these are the issues. So unless we come out with a unique approach. We have had experiences in Sierra Leone, Liberia, and of course, in the early 90s, the Rwandan example. They also supported it with the justice system, the Gacaca issue.
It has to be holistic.
Truth and reconciliation. But are the people conditioned for such things?
Thank you very much for this, General, and thank you, Doctor. We'll take a short break, and when we return, we will also touch many other issues you raised in your September report. We'll take a short break. Stay with us.
That's great.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Daily Politics on Trust TV. Remember, you can follow the conversation on our various social platforms of Facebook, Instagram, and watch us live on YouTube. We have in the studio Brigadier General Kuka Sheka, retired, who covered the Northeast and many other parts of the country. And
just like you.
And we are security expert. Yes, Doctor, in your September report, you cited a report that potential violence ahead of the presidential election. The report you cited identifies 686 communities and wards in 90 local government areas in 18 states. This means more than half of Nigeria is not safe for the election. I don't want to exaggerate, but is that the facts on ground?
Yeah, so that report we cited emanated from INEC. They did a risk assessment, pre-election risk assessment, and we identified areas that were vulnerable. Unfortunately, most of these areas are in northern Nigeria, and it's not difficult to determine. If you pick the Northeast, you alluded to the fact, and this is what we know, there are at least 3 local governments that are currently exposed. Let me leave it at that.
Okay.
Where
politically exposed, or
no, security-wise, where civil authority, it's there, but it's not stable. So how do you envisage holding an election in such a location? If you move down to the northwest, there are several locations. I mean, think about Eastern Sokoto as an example. Parts of Katsina, parts of Zamfara. I think
parts of Kaduna, like Birnungwari.
Zamfara featured prominently in that report. A lot of the locations, I think in terms of states, Zamfara has the highest number of wards and communities that based on that assessment, it will be difficult to stage a credible election. But I want to be very clear so that our audience understand what assessments try to do. An assessment identifies vulnerabilities.
Okay.
And the essence of identifying that vulnerability is so that you can take corrective measures. In this instance, take corrective measures to provide a stable atmosphere. Now, INEC did that as assessment and shared it with members of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security. There are about 24 organizations that are members of that committee, and it's being chaired by the Inspector General of Police and the National Security Advisor. They are co-chairing that committee. So what they have done with that assessment is to pick it up, go and conduct their own assessment, and I can tell you
the various agencies,
and I can tell you that at least I've spoken to a couple of them. Their assessment does not tally with that of INEC.
Okay.
In other words, they are assuring us that what they have done between when INEC conducted that assessment, unfortunately I don't know the exact date, but I know that the report started coming out around June, July.
Oh.
Now they are assuring us both privately and in public that they have taken steps to ensure that the right atmosphere to conduct a credible election is being provided. The Inspector General of Police has repeatedly said that, while the Chief of Defense Staff has also indicated that. The latest statement came from the police this week when the Inspector General of Police released a statement saying that he has provided that atmosphere. So in essence, yes, there are vulnerabilities, but the security organizations are taking measures to ensure that the elections hold in a free and fair
okay, General, do you share their optimism that it shall be well? This is one is double-barrel question I want to ask. Do you share, their sentiment, their optimism that elections will hold in all these vulnerable areas in 18 states? One. And then secondly, I know ahead of 2019 and back in 2015, you were in active service then, especially 2015. Military had to be deployed to guard voters, and in some places elections were only held in concentration camps, IDP camps, and accusations of rigging and all that. Do we foresee a situation whereby the military will be in the barracks when the 2023 elections will be held?
Well, first going back to your first question about
the first barrel.
Yes. Unfortunately, you are trying to take off the wind of myself, because tomorrow I'm going to talk to some of the security heads on the risk assessment associated with the 2023 general election. And the risk of mentioning some of the things, I share the optimism. Why? Because of the thing that I mentioned earlier on, in the sense that proactive measures are being taken by the security agencies. I told you about the increment in terms of human resources and in terms of equipment, and the gradual, the success that we have been recording, particularly, identification of the dens or the camps of these criminal elements and bombing them. And I know they have a lot in plan. I mean, up to their sleep to deal with this issue. If you look at it, Zamfara, yes, Katsina and all the rest, even today, there were, attacks along, Gusau, Funtua axis. But I can tell you things are taking shape in the sense that I won't mention the specific steps, but I know that something is happening there. So with this kind of assurance. But there is one other thing, no matter how hard the security agencies are trying, have tried, or no matter how hard they are trying, everything is contingent on the level of support and cooperation they get from the people. And I know that some state government right now, as it is, they are making concerted effort beyond the kinetic, which is, boots on the ground and the military. They are also making effort to see what other measures will they put in place to ensure that aspect. So with that you can say there is optimism that yes. Then when you are talking about the other question, in respect of
deployment
of troops to guard voters, if it comes to that, why not? Why, in the sense that if you look at section 217 and 218, you know, military in aid of civil authority, it can take so many dimensions and manifestation. And I know that right now that we are having this flood disaster, apart from the internal security issues, the military have started deploying, assisting, you know, the victims, in terms of medical supplies and what have you. And of course, even beyond that, they have the civil-military relations in which boreholes and what have you. So, election providing security. But I know that just recently, the Chief of Army Staff specifically has come out with a policy guideline in respect of Operation Safe Conduct, which usually whenever you are reaching this electioneering period, you know, the expectation on the parts of officers and soldiers of the, you know, the Nigerian army, what is expected. And I think each and every one of them has a copy in his breast pocket now. Yes, it's part of it. So, but when the chiefs are down, there is need to safeguard, you know, the electorates or the electoral materials in order to ensure the credibility and, you know, free and fair election.
The opposition, they tend to now latch on that to say that it is the ruling party.
It is not the issue of opposition. And you see, that is where we fail to understand one thing. You see, by establishment, people fail to understand that the military is also part of the government. And you know, the control mechanism lies with the executive. The president, whoever is the president, is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And in most instances, other security agencies, like let's look at the police. The police council is headed by who? The president himself. So he has powers. But those powers, we assume, will be used to the best interest of the nation to safeguard this leadership succession at this critical time of our national, you know, political history. So we are not saying that they should be partisan. No, it's to ensure that the process is secured. Unlike in the past where, you know, they were involved and there were issues, you know, associated with it. No, but this time around it's for the overall interest of the Nigerian society. You know, to ensure that the voters go about voting without let or hindrance. It will be awkward if you allow criminal element to hijack it. We have had instances where even the security facilities are being attacked. So the voters are vulnerable. So if the military could be there
to safeguard
that process, not to interfere. And whoever does interfere should, you know, be punished. So in that situation, possibly, but I don't think it will reach up to that, because I know other security forces are busy training, trying to see how they can continuously support the electoral process so that there won't be any recourse to the military. But even previous instances, all the elections that were held, the military were always on standby. They are always on standby where, you know, there's this marker, you know, the process of handing over in case the situation is beyond a particular security agency before you think of the military, and there will be specific instruction as to what is expected of them to secure life, to secure the electoral process.
Doctor, there is this frightening you know, point in your report again, that politicians, especially the candidates, how they are now, you know, approaching clerics, you know, to get their buy-in. And even if they didn't give them, they'll go there and say that, okay, so-so sect have endorsed me, so-so church or so-so mosque have endorsed me. How bad is the situation, and what does this portend for the election? Because you mentioned it in your report.
Yes, we focused on that issue, and for the simple reason that there are two fault lines. What some have described as tectonic plates upon which Nigeria lies, and ethnicity and religion. These two fault lines can make or mar us. If we use them positively, they strengthen us. If we use them negatively, they divide us. Unfortunately, the prelude to the elections is dominated, unfortunately, by these two fault lines. The discourse around the two major political parties, even though some of the other political parties should forgive me, the 16.
Yeah.
I'm highlighting two of them.
Some call them banana political parties, but they are not.
Exactly.
So by saying that they will strike a surprise.
Most likely.
Okay.
So anyway, those two have highlighted these two fault lines. And some analysts are saying they're doing it on purpose, so that we are carried away, our mind is taken off the developmental challenges. Because frankly, they are responsible over the last 16 now plus 7 years for where we are. So the more our mind is not focused on those developmental challenges, the more they will have the chance, as it were, to make a better show within in 2023. Now, irrespective of what it is, we focused on that mainly to sensitize politicians and draw their attention that they are not helping themselves. It is in the interest of the politicians themselves and, of course, in the interest of Nigeria as a whole for this transition to take place peacefully. If we continue to highlight our fault lines, then the likelihood of a disruption of the transition process is much more higher.
Yes, beyond your experience as a military person, you've been presenting papers because you're an academic, you read a lot. How should clerics and even traditional rulers, attend to some of these desperate politicians who really hide behind them to curry favors from the electorate?
Yeah, well, I think the best thing to do, they know, is to be themselves. By being themselves, if you are a cleric, you claim to be man of God, you should live by the tenets of what God has said.
Okay.
To be, open, sincere, and tell the truth regardless of who it is. This kind of is so surprising and sometimes disgusting. People will abandon the real issue at hand and will resort to all these extraneous variables of religion and ethnicity. I think we should have gone past that, in the sense that Nigeria is facing a lot of challenges that need to be addressed. And, we are supposed to progress more than the level of progress we have now.
Yeah.
And part of, the retrogression where these variables, recourse to ethnicity and religious, divisiveness among the components of Nigerian society. And then people are becoming more enlightened. It is people who do not have anything to offer.
Yes.
They will resort to that kind of thing. If for goodness sake, you know what it takes to be a leader, maybe a presidential candidate, a gubernatorial, or a senator, those issues that have challenges that you want to legislate upon, you address them, rather than resorting to people's sentiment. Yes, I agreed. Sometimes you have to appeal to the biased mind, but I think we appeal to them because actually it's just like the media, a double-edged sword.
Yes.
The ethnicity and the religion, you use them for the betterment of the society as against doing otherwise.
Yes.
So I think that is it.
Actually, my last question ought to have come to you, but I'm tempted not to ask you because of the esprit de corps.
Okay, go ahead. There is no esprit de corps.
Okay, T.Y. Danjuma said people should take up arms. Maybe he is not satisfied with what the current service chiefs are doing. Do you think it's a valid call?
I think it is not issue of service chiefs. Remember, he has said so before.
Yeah, he re-emphasized it.
I think I happened to be in the army that time when he said it, and
I think you issued a statement.
Of course, I issued a statement, and of course, army set up, a commission to verify those assertions, because I know there were issues associated with the local government chairman as of that time.
Okay.
And which led to even his arrest and what have you. So when politicians are talking, sometimes, yes, you don't discountenance it, but the truth is that at this point in time, do we need hitting of the polity, or do we need this escalation of the present quagmire we found ourselves in? Elder statesmen, there are other things that we should encourage, and I'm so happy when the Akuka of Bukhari is being turban, the Sultan himself was there.
Just to show the level of...
So you should understand, leaders are supposed to look at it in the way, how do we contribute for the,
betterment of Nigeria,
of the society.
Thank you.
Now
Please, will you say a word or two on this?
I
wanted to send you a question, but I am happy that you responded. General, yes. Just 10 seconds.
The first question you asked, it's part of the Electoral Act that politicians cannot campaign within religious premises.
Mosque or churches.
And then on General T.Y.
Danjuma, I agree in
100%
with the general.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kabiru Adamu, for your informed perspective. I want to thank you, your agency, for the wonderful work you are doing. Facts, figures, it's really helping the country. General,
thank you so much.
We appreciate you for coming, and we hope when we invite you next time, you will come.
Thank you.
Viewers, that is a wrap on today's program. Thank you for watching, and do join us again. I'm Hamza Idris.